Hello, friends. Welcome to the Bincast for Small Talk Comes to Die. Today we have as my guest your friend, Jonathan. Jonathan, thank you for being on the Bincast where Small Talk Comes to Die.
Thank you very, very much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Fantastic. I already know a lot about John's life just because we've hung out quite a bit and we have a very deep friendship that is developing continually, for which I'm very grateful. But Jonathan, my viewers don't know much about you, and so I usually start off by getting my guests to tell a little bit about their background, where they're at right now, how they got to this point. Just give us a 2, 3 minute sum up if you are able to do so.
For sure. First step is I'm going to have you turn around and look at the
Okay.
map of Europe.
Okay. I'm gonna bring
And oh, nice.
so
So
Europe here.
I was born in an industrial city called Essen in Germany. And then
Hmm.
because I was Canadian right from
Yeah.
birth, even though I was born in Germany, I
Yeah.
never felt like I was German. And
Okay.
then as a result of that, I, I didn't really, I, I didn't really sit well with the whole German culture, nor did they accept me really into their culture. So I felt, I thought I was more Canadian. And
That took
then
me
I
a while to
moved,
find heritage.
and then I moved to Canada. And then nobody really accepted me as a Canadian either because I was from Germany. So as a result of that, it kind of set this thought in mind that we are all one human race. And, um, the different thoughts that come with that. And yeah, so
Mhm.
that as a result of growing up in Europe, I had a lot of experience around traveling and being able to experience different cultures, and my love for different thought ways came to life that way. And
Mhm.
I've just been continuing that, and I'm sure we'll explore further in the conversation as to where that has brought me in terms of my life. And yeah, so currently in Calgary, and yeah, married for 3 years, and yeah, very very excited to be able to be sitting across from your smiling face.
Figuratively, although we do that quite often on a weekly basis, which is awesome.
For
Because I
sure.
was spending so much time showing my incompetence geography-wise, looking for somebody. You were saying that you weren't born in Canada, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was 13. So
13.
my parents had split up about a year before, and my mom decided, you know what, I'm going to bring myself and my four kids back to Canada, and Calgary seemed to be the best place. And yeah, 2001 ended up landing in Calgary.
When you moved to Canada as a brand new teen, 13 years old, you were saying,
Yep.
um, was there a significant shift you had to navigate socially?
Um, Not so much, although the schooling was a bit of an interesting situation.
Mhm.
My mom actually reminded me of the very first time that I was supposed to write an essay on what my thoughts were on a specific subject in English class, and I struggled with that so hard because in Germany it's very, this is the way things are done, and there's not really that, at that point in time there wasn't really that much space for open thinking and expression. um,
Mhm.
yeah, so that portion was the biggest shock for myself. Yeah.
Germany has quite a history in the last century, especially one that has colored its past, but it seems like it's not there anymore. From your
Yeah.
vantage point, tell me about how you see this shift having happened, where its involvement in the Second World War is not really reflected anymore, it seems, in the way it presents itself internationally today.
Yeah, that's interesting topic that I can probably get myself into a lot of trouble with
Okay.
if I were to express my exact thoughts on everything. So um, yeah, so Germany, yes, definitely has very, very, very minute amount of that left in its culture,
Mhm.
especially from Nazi Germany, and especially the um, persecuting Jewish people, and then of course all the other people that were seen as lessers.
Mhm.
So Germany is as far as I remember, and as far as I've seen in the last 20-ish years since I've been in Canada, has become much more of a leader in terms of accepting people for their races and their
Mhm.
different ways of thoughts, and obviously still have some cultural heritage influence, but
Sure.
they've definitely grown up quite a lot, and we
I
could
see.
definitely learn a lot from them.
Hmm. When you moved to Canada, how quickly did your family, especially now you mentioned you moved here with your mom, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Was it and like did you sense like many immigrant families, there's two cultures, one in the home from where you with the ethnic background you brought here to Canada, and then one outside the home that was distinctly different. Did you find that there was that dichotomy you had to figure your way out, nuance your way through?
No, no, not at all.
Okay. Okay.
Because my parents are Canadian, both of
Yes.
them were born in Toronto and met at university in Toronto. They brought
Gotcha.
a lot of the culture from Canada
Yeah.
to our home in
To
Germany. So, and we
gotcha.
we spoke English at home all the time, even when we were living in Germany. So, in Germany, yes, there would have been maybe a little bit of a difference in terms of inside the home versus outside the home of the
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
Specifically with like maple syrup and alphabets and making pancakes and waffles for breakfast on weekends,
I see.
and yeah, that's definitely not a very German thing to do.
I see. Now,
Yeah.
I've noticed in my experience, there was definitely those two dichotomies that I had to figure my way out. So I found that to be a confusing element for a lot of immigrant kids when they're trying to figure out,
Mm.
how am I developing, and so I wasn't sure if you might have had that same experience. From
Yeah,
what
sorry.
that's okay, that's all right. From what you've experienced in your time in Germany, especially in the German culture, what of those expressions do you still hold closely to, saying this is really, really important for me, even as I'm here in Canada now? What do you think
Mm.
they do really well socially there, culturally, that you're like, this would be really helpful for North America to consider emulating, for example?
um, their support of the arts, that is huge. I was actually like we were just talking about before we started recording. I was out in the mountains
Yeah,
today,
yeah,
and on the way home, I decided to put on uh, the Magic Flute by Mozart. Got a really good sound system in the truck, so I just blasted it and just yeah had a couple of tears come up just with very fond memories to that music, and uh, yeah, Mozart and any kind of art is very, very highly respected and socially desired,
hmm
and we could definitely take a thing or two from the Germans on that, and just any other European country in that for that matter as well.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. All right, so we're moving on now. You grew up once you came here from 13 years old here in Canada, and what would you say were the defining factors in your, say, teens into 20s? What were some of the defining um, bookmarks along the way that are sort of placeholders in the development that is you now?
Mm. As I had alluded to earlier with the whole you know human race thing, we're not separate in my mind.
Mm,
I very, very vividly remember 9/11. And
mm,
I was here for like 3 months at that point in time, and nine
mm,
eleven happened. And I remember walking through by the library in my junior high school, and I
mhm,
looked at the TV, and I turned to my friend and I said, "We're going to war." And
mm,
just with this deep sadness
mm.
in my heart that we were going out and going to be killing people for what reason? Because you know, because two planes flew, or well, I guess three planes flew into a building, and just the atrocities that have happened as a result of that since. Oops, I am sorry about that.
That's okay.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was just getting a phone call there. So the atrocities that have happened because of that one instance
Hmm.
have, yeah, it's a difficult subject,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think so much more can be learned and understood from each other by just sitting down and talking, connecting, communicating, spending time in other people's cultures, and not meddling with each other's um, cultures either. So
Hmm.
that was a very big influencing moment where I realized, oh, I'm actually a pacifist. And yeah, since then in high school, most of my time was spent in band class. I
Mm.
graduated with almost double the amount of credits that I needed to graduate high school, just because I enjoyed music so much, and I played in every single band that I could, and was part of the choir. I was an honorary choir girl for a couple of years there.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, the rest of the choir was all girls.
Oh,
It
I
was
see.
it was myself and one other guy. Yeah. So we were noted. We were crowned the unofficial choir girls.
I don't think I knew you had such a rich involvement in music like that when you were growing up. What instrument did you play?
I played mostly percussion. Yeah.
I
So
see.
yeah, my favorite was the timpani, and whenever I hear any music with timpani in it, is yeah, I listen for that.
That's
Just
amazing.
mm, it's got so much life and so much juice. And then I've also been in a few different bands as a drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And playing timpani, it wasn't the kind of instrument you could necessarily just pack in your case and walk off from band class.
No. So the schools provide the timpani.
Yes. So did you just
Timpanis.
sing at school then, or did you have your own set at home?
Oh, I just played at school.
At
And
school, okay.
yeah, and then I would practice at school as well.
On your own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've probably spent more lunch hours than playing drums and playing percussion and
Mhm.
practicing than I have socializing with other kids.
I was just thinking back to one of just your previous point on 911. If I can just go back there again, I was thinking about how most of us who were alive at that point, I know a lot of my followers are are younger, so they may not have been born at that time. But I remember how, yeah, most of us knew exactly where we were at, and I think, especially in hindsight, as I reflect on that world event, that devastating world event, if anything, it made me consider how it's toned us here in North America down in the sense that we saw that we're not untouchable anymore, but that we're really quite vulnerable on a world
Yeah,
stage. So
for
sometimes
sure.
we like world powers get to a point where we think, hey, we call the shots until something
Yeah,
like that happens.
yeah,
And
very
then
much so.
yeah, and then there was a real palpable sense amongst people that the fearfulness, the frailty, the finiteness of our life and this
Hmm.
existence. So, looking back on that response, as devastating and as scary as it was for so many here, it just made me think, John, about how it also really was helpful in that sense of appropriating a sense of humility again and saying, yep, nothing's for sure, even though we live in such a fantastic context here in North America.
For sure, for sure.
Mhm.
And just a quick side note,
Yeah,
I do prefer to be called anything but John.
thank you. You
So
reminded me. I thank you,
that's
John.
all good.
Hey, we're
Uh,
gonna get there too, aren't we?
Jono, Jono, Cripple, Jonathan, Jonathang, and
Thank you. That's
anything is
good.
good.
Actually, we'll get to a point in just a moment here, Jonathan. Um, and then the second part you were saying was about music, and with music you were saying that was would you say it was your favorite class?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, I can totally relate in the same way. Mine was definitely music as well. Band class was my big thing. You of course know I
Perfect.
played trumpet.
I
You did not
I
know
did
that yet.
I did not know that, but you seem like a trumpet kind of guy. Just
Trumpet is my instrument.
standing or sitting in the back, just blasting.
Oh my goodness, that's why I chose it. Is there is no competition for the trumpet. Like I think me and my friends delighted. We sat in the back row, of course, Jonathan, and
Yeah,
as we played, the poor see we had saxophones in front of us and the clarinets and then the flutes and their poor ears. I mean, our teacher was trying to help us with the dynamic, a forte versus pianissimo, and we didn't care at that early stage in our.
yeah. Oh yeah, just blast away.
Oh, it was glorious.
Oh
My
goodness.
good job for me to be certain. Let's get into your name now, Jonathan. You did mention before, and I so appreciate you again making the point.
Yeah, no
For
problem.
those of you who don't know, when you're friends with me, when I hang out with you, I have a gift in our friend circles for reappropriating names. And Jonathan knows how I mix up even my friends' names. But thank you for, again, making the request. Tell us a little bit more about why it means a lot. Because I know one of our other mutual friends, when I first met him, Joshua, I was
Yeah.
calling him Josh, and he's like, actually prefer Joshua. I'm like, okay, give me a few
Okay.
months here to work on this.
For
Same
sure.
dynamic. But why does it mean? Yeah, why the aversion to John and okay with other forms? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I went for years and years and years by just John. And I grew up being called John, referring to myself as John.
Yeah,
And then I was on a trip over in Nepal, and right close to the end of 2012, there was that whole, end of the world, December 20, what, December 21st?
yeah.
Was it December 21st was supposed to be the end of the world in 2012?
According to the calendar,
The
was it?
Mayans.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway, so there was this, the people that I was connected with at that point in time
yeah.
had a little bit of like a ceremony, I guess, where it was just like, it's the end of the Mayan calendar. Let's see what happens. And at that point in time, I decided, you know what? It's time for John to die, and that I would step into the power that my full name has, because my parents obviously named me Jonathan for a reason, and I
Mhm.
wanted to really honor them and honor myself by stepping into that. This is who I am, and I'm not just John. That was my past.
Radiated.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Interesting. When I first moved to Canada, Biniam was difficult for a lot of my peers to say, so I settled for Ben for the longest time. So Ben was what
Oh
they
really?
called me for the longest time. Absolutely. Benjamin is the translation of Binyam, the original being
Okay.
from Hebrew, Binyamin.
Oh really?
Uh,
Oh,
that's
I
right.
did
Yeah.
not know that.
Whole background said, yeah, Benjamin, Binyam. Yeah. So
Cool.
I think it wasn't till my mid to latter teen. Actually, I remember it was when I was about 18 years old when I got my first real job ever at a grocery store, and they were asking what name to put on my name tag, and that was a split second moment when I said, I'm going to go back to my full name. Because by this time, I've grown in self-confidence over my teen years to be able to say, this is going to be a lot of work for people, but I don't mind making it work for people because this is who my
Yeah,
identity is. And so I
yeah,
revert back to my full name at that point. So similar sort of a trajectory, it seems, to yours, where I said, I'm going to reclaim my identity through my name that was given to me by my
for
parents. I
sure.
was like, honor them. Yeah, so that's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. There's power in that. Just saying, this is who I am, and
Hmm.
please treat me as such.
Sure enough. Sure enough. Um, you mentioned music a couple times. One, you were saying that's one of the things you identify when you think of what Europe or Germany in specific did really well is it had a really strong heritage in the arts celebration. And then you also follow through even in your school with an enthusiastic participation in music, especially. Would you say music is your favorite form of art?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Hard rock all day long. It gives me chills. But then of course I'll also listen to classical in different forms, but mostly hard rock is
Mhm.
yeah.
Very cool.
My favorite band, Clutch, I've seen live 7 times, and I am quite saddened that the whole touring thing is if hopefully not gone forever, hopefully just on a bit of a pause, because the seeing people play live and perform live
Ah.
is a treat.
I was just watching a video about that earlier today, which said it was a video that says, here's some things not to skimp out on when it comes to going for good quality, like get a good quality mattress and pillows, because that's like a really good self-investment. But one of the things it was saying, Jonathan, was don't hold out when you're going to a concert for cheap seats where you're behind some pillar.
Mhm.
Spend the extra to be like right there for the experience that is going to be for a lifetime. So it just
For
reminded me
sure.
of
Yeah.
travel was very is very important to you. You mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Tell us a
Um,
little about that.
yeah. Not so much for me to be able to say, oh yeah, I've been XYZ or XYZ places. More so just to be able to connect in with those cultures and have myself be, if not an exact replica of that culture, but at least have enough understanding to say, I appreciate this and I appreciate, where you come from and what the landscape, how the landscape influences the culture, how the food influenced the culture, and how the people influence the food. And yeah, it's really, really cool to learn about different cultures in that kind of a way, and then also be able to potentially share that with other people when I return. Yeah.
So basically you're aiming for experiences in the midst of traveling opportunities.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not just under your belt saying, been there, done that.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
imply
Exactly.
then you generally avoid like guided tours, but go for the off the beaten path option? Or what does that look like when you consider the places you go?
It's the former. I
Go for
definitely,
guided tours.
oh
Okay.
no, no, I avoid them.
You avoid those.
I avoid those, and I just like to immerse myself however I can. And I've gotten myself into some weird situations, but it's been worth it. It's been worth it.
I see. I see. All right. Now I've heard it clearly. It's not just in your belt that you're aiming for, but the experiences you're going to go for. So this next question does not imply that it's not just in belts, but where have you been to, and how have those experiences to those places changed you, or affected you, or shifted your perspective? Tell us a little bit more, some of those highlights.
Well, as a kid, I saw a lot of Europe. That was with my parents,
Yeah.
and that was great to be able to learn those kind of things as a kid and have that kind of foundation to start off with. As I grew older, I went back to Europe a bunch of times. And
Hmm.
then 7, 8 years ago, I started a trip that was going to be around the world, starting in Nepal, going to go to India, and then going to go to southern Africa, and then start traveling up Africa, and end up coming back to Canada at some point in time.
Hmm.
Now, my plans got a little bit derailed in my first country. um, I was spent about 2 months in a Buddhist monastery, just learning about Buddhism and seeing that part of the culture, and I got to also travel around a little bit in Nepal itself. Actually, very interesting side story on Christmas Day, 2012.
Okay.
I I was in a little town called Pokhara, and there was about 5 or 6 of us that had gone on a little hike, ended up in this little town square, and the people that I was with were just hanging out in like a little museum or whatnot, and these two young girls come up to me, and we start chatting. They must be like 10, 12 years old, maybe even younger. And so the three of us are just chatting, and they're just so excited that somebody else is talking to them other than who they know, and they invite me over to their place for tea. And I was like, I'm not going to say no. So I said to my friend that I saw there, that I was hiking with, hey, I'm just going to go and have some tea, and don't wait up. And I thought she had heard me, but she didn't. So here I am walking down, some weird back alleys and streets in a town that I don't know, and I end up in this little girl's apartment with her mom and dad, and they brew up tea, and then my friends are like, what the heck happened to Jonathan? And so they come and try and find me, and so
Yeah.
all of us end up in this one little girl's apartment with
Yeah.
her parents and drinking tea on Christmas Day.
Wow.
And so so obviously we felt a little bit bad for just kind of storming, crashing their party. So we left them a little bit of money as a thank you. And that
Yeah.
was just that's kind of things that I
Happen.
just like to say yes to when because like what's the worst thing that's going to happen, right? Get murdered,
It makes me.
have my passport stolen, right?
Hmm. It makes me wonder about the opportunities that unexpectedly come along by
Yeah,
events or moments like these. That it's like a split second. Let's say yeah and go for it, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So that was my Christmas Day, and then
Yeah.
a few days after that, I started what was going to be a 3 week long trek around the Annapurna circuit. Started it
Okay.
with two American women, and we just started on the trek, and along the way we started to meet random people. We met four British guys and kind of kept bumping into them on random days on the trail. Ran into a guy from Colombia, a guy from Mexico. Just really cool how we just kept bumping into the same people. And then on day 10, all 10 of us were together. And all the four Brits, the two American women, myself, the Mexican guide, or the Mexican gentleman and his guide. I think that's 10
Hmm.
people, and and Colombia, and so the guy from Colombia, which we called him Mr. Colombia. And yeah, so just trekking to the next town. We were going to spend the next couple of days going together because it was going to be a little bit more of a treacherous climb to get over onto the other side of this trek.
So this
Is
is
it
the
okay?
trek circuit you said like goes round from like point A all the way around back to the same spot
Yeah, pretty much the same
on
spot.
on the mountain range.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Um, is it okay that I'm going down this road here, by the way?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
um,
Don't worry. I'll guide you if we're not ready. We're doing great.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So on day 10, there was this landslide area that we all one by one started crossing and making sure that everyone was getting across safely. And I was the last to go, and I did not make it to the other side. I fell. Once I got to about the halfway mark, I slipped, lost my balance. I don't really know exactly what happened, but I ended up falling and tumbling and got a pretty decent head wound as a result of that. And left arm doesn't work 100%. And so after about 100 feet of falling, well, started with a 15-foot free fall that I slowed down with my head with a however many pound backpack on my back, and then just ragdolled the rest of the way down. And then those those 9 people saved my life. And two of them went to go call a helicopter. Two of them came down to see if I was okay, and then the rest went and got supplies to make a stretcher to get me up to the next town. And then because it was so late in the afternoon, the helicopter couldn't come up and get me out of there. So they had to keep me alive through the whole night to be able to get onto the helicopter and then get medical attention once I was back down in Kathmandu.
What do you remember about that whole event?
Very, very little. There's a whole week that I have no memory of.
Yeah.
That particular day, I remember waking up,
Hmm.
and I remember there was a bridge, a suspension bridge that we went across, and it was quite windy. So we, I remember kind of like crouching down and staying safe as the bridge was swaying across. And
Hmm.
then I also remember as I was starting to fall, just wherever this voice came from, just let go, just let go. And I did that. I let go of all of my muscles, and I think that's probably what ended up saving my life. Is because if I had tensed up,
Yeah.
I when I hit that boulder, I would
Yeah.
have probably cracked my neck, right?
Wow.
As they say in car accidents with people that are under the influence of alcohol, they let go and they've got no muscle control, so
Yeah.
they survive. But then the other
Yeah.
people, in the other vehicle or in their vehicle, still tense up, and that's
Yeah.
what kills them.
Wow.
So yeah, those
Yeah.
are the only three things that I remember from that one day, and then the
Yeah.
next memory after that I've got in the hospital in Kathmandu.
Okay. That was that was a significant life event that you're continuing to experience today. That that was the catalyst was just a moment of slipping.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if I slipped or what happened exactly, but something caused me to go from upright to falling.
I'm just thinking about all the events that led up to it, including these comrades that you were traveling alongside. The likelihood that you could have been on your own versus in this
Hmm.
group that you developed this rapport with.
Yeah, yeah. I am
How?
very,
Mhm.
very grateful that all of them were there. And even though they were freaked out, some of them were very, very, very scared.
Mhm.
And thought they were actually not helpful in the night that came after. One of the gentlemen just stayed in the corner all night long, and
Mhm.
just didn't want to have anything to do with like any like my head wound or anything like that, or my puking from the pain. But he played an enormous role. Whenever he whenever he noticed that I wasn't moving, breathing, like making any kind of noise to say that, hey, I'm alive, he would just call from the back corner of the room and he would say, hey dude, are how you doing over there? And that would alert everyone else to pay attention to me and make sure that I was doing good. And obviously I have no memory of that, but that's just what I'm told about that night from the people that I was with.
Give us a catalog of what went on physically that they had to attend to you on. You were saying your left arm doesn't work as well as it once did. Your head had significant injuries, and yet here you have one of the sharpest minds I know, and hence I know because you're our friends at
Thank you.
this. Yeah, but yeah, just give us the like what you learned in the aftermath of what happened and how they're able to patch you up again.
Mm. So the initial fall, I landed on my head right in the motor and speech function part of the brain,
Okay.
and that bruised that part of the brain quite a bit, caused me to be paralyzed on the right side, and for about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after that, the only thing that I could say was pain. So if I was
Mm-hmm.
hungry, it was pain. If I need to go to the washroom, it was pain. And that made it a little bit difficult for people that I was with to get me the right kind of treatment. So that was the head wound. And then on my left side, as I was tumbling, I dislocated my elbow and my shoulder, and two of the three major nerves that go through the brachial plexus, which is right behind kind of where the collarbone sits, just let go. They burst because they were just torn to that crazy amount where they couldn't survive anymore. And that's what caused the nerve damage on my left arm,
Mm-hmm.
which which is surprisingly getting much better for no surgery or anything like that on my left arm. And then once I got into Kathmandu, into the best hospital in Nepal, with a doctor that was trained in Japan, actually, I was they opened up my head, pulled out all the tiny little bone fragments, and cleaned it all up, and then put the biggest pieces back into place, just like a puzzle piece, and then stapled me up. So I think that was 78 staples. That was on my head. Yeah, once when I've got my head fully shaved, is you can see there's quite a bit of a divot. You
Understandable.
can
Yeah.
maybe see that still, but
Just a
yeah.
there. Just a wee bit.
uh, yeah, and then after that, it was a lot of it got quite gritty, where I had to just say, hey, I'm going to walk again. I'm going to use my right arm as it was, as I did before. I'm going to use my left arm as I did before. And every little step of the way, I would very consciously start to use different, different parts that as much as I could. Whenever I was able to stand, once I was able to stand again, and
Mm-hmm.
then would go from my wheelchair and kind of like pivot with assistance, and then sit down on the hospital bed. The nurses would quite often say, "Oh no, let me help you with your legs." And I said, "No, that is not happening. I'm going to lift those legs myself." And it was those little moments of, I'm going to do it. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to become complacent and I'm not going to survive.
So would you say it was your desire for independence that drove that determination to say, I'm pushing through this?
No, it wasn't a desire for independence. It was a desire to get better. It was
Okay.
a desire to just do whatever I could to push
Mhm.
myself and rebuild those muscles as best as I could.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, that's the physical side there. Give me and my viewers an outline of what happened emotionally, psychologically, mentally in your, yeah, from the point that you came to where you're at today. What was that um, metamorphosis like?
Supposedly, I still
Hmm.
have the exact same or a very, very similar kind of demeanor,
Mm.
and big picture, positive outlook kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And when I was in the hospital in Kathmandu, because I was started the travels by myself, my travel insurance paid for a bedside companion, which was my
Mhm.
mom because she was the best person to end up by my bedside. And she
Yeah.
said that as soon as she came through the hospital door into my room, and I
Yeah.
turned over and I smiled at her, she said, yeah, everything's going to be fine. So I'm glad I'm glad I didn't lose any of my my positive attitude or anything like that. Obviously,
Mhm.
there's been moments where I was very, very upset.
Mhm.
Considerably shaken,
And what was the,
shaken, not stirred.
yeah,
Yeah.
what was the upsetness in reference to? Was it in reference to the missed opportunities or your new
Hmm.
limitations physically? What was that anger in response to?
I'm going to pause here for a second.
Sure.
Is it okay if I swear?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for asking.
There was
Thank you for asking. It's
one
totally all right. Yeah.
there was one shitty, shitty doctor
Mm,
that had no bedside manners or very little bedside manners. And I went for different tests on my left arm. And he just kind of sat down and said, yeah, well, you're never going to use your left arm again. Cool. Yeah. See you later. What? Here I am, a
yeah.
25-year-old dude
Yeah.
that used to make his living off of fixing cars. Um, what? No like bedside manner of like, hey, just so you're aware, like
Mm,
this might come as a shock to you, but you
mhm,
this is where things are at. This is what's happening with your body, and this is probably going to end up being a permanent thing. So
mm,
that really really upset me, and
mm,
I had a long night of crying after that. Mostly mostly because I was given that news and in such a crappy way.
mhm.
Um, but I guess to some degree it also caused me to say to myself, "Well, I'm going to prove him wrong." So I don't know if it was if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but
Mm.
yeah, who knows?
Um, the, I'm reflecting on your love for music, especially percussion wise, which involves the use of your limbs, which now
Hmm.
you don't have 100% use of anymore. Is that something you've had to say goodbye to, or are you saying, hell no, we're still on radar here of what you'd like to see accomplished there?
Hmm. Kind of a weird twist of fate. Before I started my travels,
Mm-hmm.
I was living in a place where I had my drums set up,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just sit and play, randomly. And one day I sat down and I started playing, and my mind was just like, "No, you're done." So
Oh,
yeah,
so that already happened before this event.
yeah, isn't that
So
weird?
yeah, that is like bizarre because you love band in your growing years, and then you just got to a point where you're like, I've just shifted and turned around the corner, and I've enjoyed that season, but now it's over.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I was
okay,
complete. I was done. Sold my drums,
yeah,
and then ended up traveling.
I see, I see. So it
Yeah,
really was a shift there. Okay,
yeah. So I
and
don't. Sorry.
you haven't looked back since.
No, No,
Yeah,
I mean, I've sat down on kits every once in a while, and I've
sure.
been part of the drumming circles in Calgary here as well.
Hmm.
The drumming circles are much more my thing these days.
Okay.
Just not sitting down behind a kit. I still love hearing really talented drummers, because yeah, just
Okay, so that's still there because you still
oh yeah,
love the musical, yeah, enjoyment.
oh
I
for
hear
sure.
a really good trumpet player, Jonathan, and then I have a craving for my instrument. I'm like, where's my instrument? I want it right now. So,
Mm.
so
And
you,
I still tap my fingers. I still
yeah,
kind of go along with what the drummer is doing, but
yeah.
very very little desire to actually sit down behind a kit again.
Hmm.
Strange, but yeah,
This life-altering event happened about 8 years ago,
yeah,
in Nepal at the beginning of your world tour series for India, Africa, North America eventually,
yeah,
and it got cut at the beginning.
yeah. About
In a,
3 months in.
yeah. Um, has your perspective on life changed as a result of that event? Has something been a breakthrough for you by way of, we're not ever guaranteed the future? Give me a bit of like a reference point on how
Yeah.
that affected or not your take on planning for the future, especially the
Hmm.
unexpected things that come along.
Yeah, right at first, quite a bit changed for myself. I had much more of a hey, whatever is going to happen is going to happen kind of an attitude, and that went well for a couple of years, and then I got myself into financial trouble, and then I was like, oh, maybe I actually have to think about what I do. So, but it's definitely instilled. A little bit more peace around death, a little bit more peace around impermanence.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
and in general, I try to enjoy life more,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm human. I kind of get myself into weird ruts and look at the world in a negative light.
When I first met you, you came across to me as a very thoughtful individual who processes in a very careful way whatever they're experiencing in life. You have a seed of sorts that you sort of process, it would seem to me. Um,
Okay.
Newsflash.
News to me.
Um, what would you say has been the primary influences on who you are today? You're saying you're, for the most part, easygoing. You are, fun to be around, and you definitely are. But what have been the influences that have helped develop who you are till this point today?
um, Well, like I said earlier, growing up in Germany, not as a German, as
Mhm.
Canadian, and then moving to Canada, I,
Yeah,
I still had a German accent at that point in time, so it didn't really fit into Canada either. So
yeah.
uh, that aspect has always been there, for pretty much my whole life,
Hmm.
and then I'd have to say like a very strong family culture has really uh,
Hmm.
helped me feel who I am. Um,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I do know that I take that for granted many times.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I try to not take that for granted. And as for what my experiences over in Nepal,
Hmm.
um, I'm very grateful that I went through all of that because it's made me a stronger person and a more resilient person, as well as a more grateful person. Uh,
Hmm.
and if I was given the option to do it again, I would take it, or
Wow.
to do it over again. I would do the exact same thing.
Wow. That's
I I learned a lot about my resiliency at that
yeah.
through that experience, and I've been thinking about that resiliency a
Hmm.
lot. My
Mm.
wife and I, Andrea,
Yes, she's beautiful, by the way.
she
Yeah,
is a very 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 amazing
beautiful
person.
person in general. Yes, but your wife and
Yes.
you have been thinking about.
Yeah, so her and I we've chatted many times about my attitude around this whole experience, and she pointed out quite a few times. Do you know what? It is most likely because you had that strong family
Hmm.
support that you were
Hmm.
able to go from there and build yourself back up because you didn't have to worry about all of the crap that was going underneath, like making sure that my laundry was done and having to make sure that my phone bill was properly taken care of as well. There was a lot of different factors that were put into
Hmm.
place
Yeah,
without me having to worry about it.
yeah,
And yeah, and that's one thing that I had taken for granted that I don't want to anymore. Yeah.
absolutely. And what you're saying is almost so, it's a difficult pill to swallow for so many here because I think in our cultural context here, we thrive or we're encouraged a lot more to sit back, relax, kick our feet up, avoid the hard things in life, take the easy route. But what
Mm.
you're saying is a lot of our growth, a lot of our self-development and our just the character forming opportunities come through these really, really difficult, unasked for, uncomfortable, difficult seasons.
Oh
And you're
yeah.
saying you do that all over again.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Very,
don't
very,
disagree
very
with you.
grateful. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We I think we need more opportunities for difficult times
Mm.
in society these days. Obviously, COVID and the whole year has been a very, very trying time.
Mm.
And I think once this is all over, I think we need to very consciously step into not life-threatening situations, but into difficult situations that
Mm-hmm.
build one's resiliency, build one's strength, build one's emotional capacity, one's heart capacity. Yeah, I think we need to get back into just having that as the norm because we've kind of lost that as a society, right? We didn't have the dirty 30s to grow up through. We didn't have World War II, right? After that, it's just been just kind of simple for Canadians, right?
Mm-hmm. We're coming down to the last few minutes. I got some rapid
For
fire
sure.
pretty quickly here. Buddhism.
Perfect.
Did that play any sort of influence in your development as a person? Did you take that on? Or was that something you're like, hey, I'm glad to have experienced this, but now you're just more aware of it than are participating in it?
At first, I used a lot of their different meditative practices during my healing.
Yeah,
But then since then, I still meditate, but don't follow Buddhism, not at
gotcha.
all. Yeah.
Cool. Can you still pull off a German accent?
Oh yeah. Um, but I don't do it very well. I would have to have a little bit of practice, and then a very little bit of German beer, and then I'm good.
Well done, bravo. That is brilliant.
Thank
I
you.
loved it. Uh, uh, and I think I wanted to finish just the last couple of moments talking about, I think the best part about what you were talking about, and I can totally relate on this point, was how you felt as an individual who did not have a land to call their own, which in essence broadened you to the whole terra that we call this earth.
Hmm.
I think I resonate with that because I had the same experience in a certain sense, meaning as an Ethiopian, I was only born there. I grew up in Kenya, which is just below Ethiopia. And then I moved to Canada here when I was 8 years old. So for me, it was just a whole confusion of identity. Like, where do I align with? There's so many pressures that are calling for my allegiance and alignment with, and that's really confusing. But in hindsight, as I saw my evolution, Jonathan, it was more along the lines of um, really coming to value the importance of our humanity before our ethnicity. That is so, like, it resonates so strongly with me because that point of division, and I know there are expressions even in my own Ethiopian culture, those who would say, hey, we have such a rich heritage. I say, yes, we do. But then it goes a little further to say that we're the epitome. We're like the best of the best. And that's when I say, I can't join you on down there because there's so many other expressions of vitality and vibrancy and really unique expressions and philosophies and ideologies that I also want to tap into and experience and understand, even if I don't agree with them. But the very thing that holds me, I guess, to the world, with a heart wide open, is to say you're a fellow human being, and we may be from different countries, but first and foremost, we know what it's like when we fear together, when we are expressing worry or happiness or excitement or all this range of human experiences that brings us all in this fantastic plane of equality. And so that's what I really resonated with what you were saying. You're saying you see this one race.
Yeah,
I was just like 100%, 100%.
for sure. The
Yeah.
ones with multiple freckles and the ones with just one big freckle.
Joke. Absolutely, absolutely. In the last couple of minutes, would you give me, in your sense, what you value as really important by way of priority in your life that you devote and invest time to and attention to? Yeah, what do you see as really like your non-negotiables of saying this is my nucleus, what
Mm.
I hold?
Um, it's become very, very clear, especially in the last couple of months, that community is huge, huge for me. And thank you for being part of that community. And I remember the first time that I met you. We sat down around this fire, and within like 2 minutes, you asked me like a deep, deep, deep question. And I love being able to connect in with people that I can call brothers and sisters, and be able to sit and eat food together,
Mm-hmm.
drink water, wine, beer, tea, so that is becoming very, very quickly a non-negotiable for me. It's just having that time to connect.
Brilliant. Dear friends, thank you for watching this episode of the Bincast. I was so honored to have my friend Jonathan. Jonathan, I value our friendship. I look forward to seeing how it continues to deepen going forward. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It was, it was, I think, meaningful for a lot who are going to hear it, especially hear the values behind the story. There's a story that's like, wow, that happened, but then there's also the what do we learn from this? So how do we see this individual continuing to make their way forward in the way they process the world that is in front of them? So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing the insights that you've come at a very high cost, but the ones that you value now too is really sweet.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having this conversation with me. And I
My,
very much have been getting to a place of becoming okay with sharing my story. And thank you for being a place where I want to share.
awesome. This has been the Bincast where small talk comes to die. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode. This is Jonathan and Vinny for now saying, see you soon.
For
Bye.
sure. Bye.